if you combined evolution and creation, the gospel story would be hindered. God placed into our genes the ability to adapt to our environment. There are organisms with multiple different parts, but if one part was taken away, then that organism would not be able to survive anymore, it would not be able to live. And evolution works with the adding on of parts. And so if that organism couldn't live with less parts to begin with, that means it couldn't have evolved.
Hello and welcome to the Living Life for Real podcast. My name is Evelyn Byers, and today I have a guest with me again. I have Callie Brown on the podcast.
Hey!
I've had both of her sisters, Aaliyah and Adelie, on the podcast, so had to get her on too. She's actually been gone. She's been working at the summer camp that I worked at, and she's been gone for the past 2 months, so this is like the first time we've been able to even hang out since she's been gone.
Yeah, this is crazy.
Yeah, and she gets to talk on the podcast.
Yay!
So it'll be fun. So Callie actually just graduated. She's going to be going off to college. Where are you going to go?
Cedarville University.
Yeah, but yeah, Callie's so smart.
Bro, what?
You are literally like one of the smartest people I know. Like whenever I talk to you, I always feel like kind of stupid. Like
What?
when we were talking.
Effie.
No, when we were talking about like stuff like preparing for this podcast, like we were talking about some like you used like some big words, and I was like, okay, what does that mean? Now how do you spell it? And like I just was like, oh, I feel like an idiot, but it's okay.
I'm sorry. I won't use big words anymore.
No, I'm kidding. I like it. I like when you use big words.
Oh,
It's cool. It's impressive. But yeah, Callie is so smart. Do you want to tell them your major?
Molecular biology.
Yeah. If that doesn't scream smart, like I don't know what does. Like I hated biology.
Bro, I love biology. It's so fun.
Yeah, I'm glad I got that over with freshman year. I'm not going back. But yeah, you have fun. But yeah, it's very cool. I do like it when Callie talks about science stuff because I'm always impressed by all her knowledge. I'm like, I wish I knew stuff like that. But yeah, that's okay. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to be talking about just kind of like how science like really can fit into like Christianity and stuff. Because that's just one thing like I really don't know a whole lot about. Like I like to think I do. Like I like to think that if somebody asked me like questions about like creation versus evolution and stuff, I like to think that I would have an answer, but if I did, it would really be pretty basic. Like I understand, like I know enough to be able to like support my view on creation, but like not enough to like really like give facts and like evidence, you know? Like I could point people to passages in the Bible, but that's about it. So
Yeah.
I thought it would be cool to bring Callie on because she really knows a lot about that, and I think it's pretty cool and people should know more about that.
Yeah, I've taken so many classes on this. It's actually wild. So hopefully it goes well.
Yeah, it'll be great. But yeah, I thought this would be a really good topic to kind of bring up, especially like heading into the school year. A lot of people, you know, will be going back to like public schools or like, you know, colleges that maybe are teaching things about like evolution that maybe like you don't fully believe. And it's, you know, good to have some of these like reminders like before you're stepping like into that world and to, you know, just kind of go in like more like firm and rooted in what you're believing and like having that evidence like reminded. So like for my first question, I just kind of want to start with the basics. Like, can you just like kind of briefly explain just the difference between like creation and evolution? Like maybe for somebody who doesn't really know as much, you know?
Yeah, I'll start with creation. So I think people, creationists estimate maybe is like 5,000 to 10,000 at most years ago. God created the world and everything in it, and through that he did it over the span of 6 literal 24-hour days, and then on the 7th day he rested. that's like very simple overview of creation. And then evolution is simply the earth just kind of appeared, and the organisms that are on the earth went from simple to progressively more and more complex, to what we have today. Yeah, essentially evolution is like the earth, the planets, the stars appeared over a process, and then the organisms on the earth just started evolving from simple to more complex. Simple but confusing.
No, for real. Like the people that I feel like really have like rooted what they believe in evolution, like I kind of don't understand it because honestly, it feels harder to believe to me that things
Yeah.
just slowly changed over time than if they just were created. But I don't know, that's just me. I
Yeah.
was raised in a Christian home, so
Yeah.
like
So
I
was
feel like that helps. But like, it is feel like it takes a lot of faith to believe in something like that too, you know?
Yeah, that's honestly one of the arguments that I've heard a lot. It takes more faith to believe in evolution than it does to believe in Christianity.
So could you kind of just like explain and like defend why you believe in creation?
Yeah, so honestly, it's just through a lot of research and things, specifically pertaining to the creation evolution debate. It's through research. But honestly, I've had personal experience through Christianity, like seeing God work in my life, seeing other people's lives change, where, like, honestly, the creation part doesn't matter. It's more the gospel that matters. And I've seen that through my life, through other people's lives. And so that's honestly why I believe in creation, is because I know the gospel is true, and I know what God says is true. So I know that creation is true.
No, that's really good actually. Like just, believing that just what God says is true. And so like if you believe that, then you should like just believe in creation cuz like why would he be so honest and truthful about everything else in the Bible, but that just being off or incorrect? Like that's not how God works.
Mm-mm.
Now that kind of just like leads right into my next question. Like why um like do you think that creation and evolution could coexist, and why or why not?
Well, first off, no, I don't think they could coexist. And why? Because, well, one, the Bible never mentions anything about evolution, and I think Genesis should be taken in a literal interpretation, not viewed as a story or something we can combine with evolution. Also, there's like so many different things with evolution and creation that if you combine them, it would just completely destroy, honestly, both of those stories. So I would say the main thing would be that, honestly, if you combined evolution and creation, the gospel story would be hindered, because the idea of evolution is for a simpler organism to go to a more complex one. And the way they do that is through one dying, and then like gaining more abilities, and then the next one dies and it gains more abilities. And the process is through death. But when God created the world, he said it was good. And he did not create the world with death. We are the ones that chose death. If God used evolution to create, there would essentially, death would not be the sin penalty. And sin would already have been in the world. God would have created the world with sin if he used evolution. And that means if there was sin already in the world, Jesus wouldn't have had to come to save us from our sins. There would be no reason for the cross, no reason for the resurrection, no reason for hope in our lives for Jesus' second coming. But because God created the world good and perfect, without evolution, is why we have this hope found in Jesus. Yeah.
That's really good. I like that you keep like bringing it back to like the gospel side of it. I feel like whenever I think of like creation versus evolution, I think of it just like thinking about, the stories in Genesis versus the theories that we have from the world. But I like that, you keep tying it back into, like even just Jesus and like those stories, because I feel like I never really think about it like that. Like, is that something that, you've been like taught a lot in like the books that you've read?
Yeah, I would definitely say I learned that like argument maybe a year or two ago in one of the classes that I was taking. A lot of this stuff I've honestly learned from classes I was taking in books or articles that they recommended. So, yeah, highly recommend doing your own research.
Oh, that's really good.
I would also say some other reasons why creation and evolution can't coexist are because in Genesis it gives the creation account, and it has specific orders for which thing when each thing was created, and each thing was created separately. You can notice that like animals, plants, humans, it wasn't all in like one progressive line of stuff. But with evolution, all that would have been out of order. We wouldn't have had that. And there's a significant time difference in between things. Creation happened, as I mentioned earlier, around 5,000, 6,000 years ago, whereas evolution was like billions of years ago. And so trying to fit that in really, like, there's not really a good medium ground on that. You can't compromise with billions and then a few thousands of years. One of the big arguments for evolution is that there's so many evidences of the earth being dated to be billions of years old, or this rock is millions of years old, this fossil is millions of years old. But there's been a bunch of different studies, which I find really interesting, that show that there were a lot of assumptions made when they were dating these objects, and those assumptions like bled into their research and caused it to be inaccurate. Another simple evidence of how like radiometric dating and stuff like that is inaccurate is carbon-14 shouldn't be found in anything dated to be over like 90,000 years old, but it's been found in like diamonds and coal and other objects that are like dated to be millions of years old. So there's just like simple little inerrancies in these things that not many people know about. They just take the face value and they don't research a little bit deeper into some of these things. And I think it's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like one thing I've always heard about is just like, people always talk like the world like it's like looks like it's like billions or millions of years old, but it's really just because like of the flood. That's just like a basic thing that I learned. Do you want to go any deeper into
Yeah,
that?
I actually have stuff. Oh, they say that because of like the flood, but also starlight becomes like a really big thing because we have these stars that are millions of light years away. I think. Don't quote me on that, but we can still see their starlight. And so people were like, oh, well, the Earth must have to be millions of years old for us to see that light. There's a bunch of different theories, and they're beyond my comprehension. So if that's something that interests you, I would recommend looking it up. There are theories that Christians have, and I think they could work. A lot of the times I've heard that the earth was just created with age because when Adam and Eve were created, they were created as adults, I assume. When the trees were created, they were created like as fully grown trees. They weren't little babies. Like when animals were created, they were created grown. So I think that's a pretty good argument, but I know there are some like good arguments against that theory. So I would recommend researching it more if you're interested in that.
Yeah, I've never thought about that. That kind of like blew my mind a little bit there for a second. Shows how smart I am.
Bro.
Do you have anything to kind of share that like you feel like proves more about like the flood?
There is a lot of stuff, honestly. Like any big canyons like the Grand Canyon most obviously had to be, and scientists, like even evolution scientists agree, like it had to be created by some massive body of water. But that could be evidence for like a local flood, but for worldwide floods, there are rock beds and sediment layers that span over entire continents. I've I don't know if it has a name or something, but there's one that can be found in different places in America. But that same rock layer can also be found in like around England and other places in Europe, which I think is really cool, showing that before the flood, the earth was all just one big landmass, I'm pretty sure. And you can kind of see that with the continents. Some of them do look like they connect a little bit. And the worldwide flood broke that up, but we can still see evidences of that. Also, another cool thing is there have been like ocean ocean animal fossils that have been found on the tops of mountains. And so it had to be a gigantic flood to cover the tops of mountains and put those ocean animal fossils on top of it. So that's another evidence.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So like I've heard a little bit about things. Like I know a little bit like about like people talking about like mutations and like natural selection and things. Like I know like a little bit about those things, but can you kind of like explain those a little bit more like in depth and maybe disprove those things?
Yeah, so evolutionists use mutations as the means of like how evolution happens, how animals evolve into supposedly different animals, and natural selection is kind of a smaller version of evolution, but evolutionists still use natural selection to support their views. But fun fact, evolution, not evolution, fun fact, natural selection was actually first proposed by a Christian scientist named Edward Blythe and not by Charles Darwin, which, yeah, I think Edward Blythe discovered it maybe a couple decades or so before Charles Darwin. And I think there's like evidences of Charles Darwin reading Blythe's works, which I find interesting. But yeah, Blythe showed how God used natural selection actually to help animals and other organisms adapt to their environment. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. It's a bad thing when used with evolution, but we can actually see how it does support creation. Natural selection is essentially the change within a kind of animal. So, fun fact again. Creationists use, instead of saying species, they use the word kind. So you could refer to the cat kind or the dog kind or the, I don't know, another kind of animal instead of a specific species. Species kind of narrows it down a little bit too much because there are several different species within an animal kind. So that's what I mean when I say kind. Natural selection essentially gives the ability to change and adapt within that kind. It's not changing an organism from one into another. It's just maybe changing the length of the fur, or maybe even like over time the color, or sometimes just the build of an animal or a plant can change, which I think is really cool how God placed into our genes the ability to adapt to our environment like that. It shows that He truly does care for us.
That just like makes me think of just like dog breeding. Like like I mean, we started out with all these different breeds, but then slowly like they've changed because like if you breed like a golden retriever with like a poodle, you're gonna have a golden doodle, and it's like
Yeah.
it's still a dog. It's just a different blend of like dogs.
Yeah.
Like I mean, it's even true with like people. Like, there's people that have black hair, and then there's people that have blonde hair.
Yeah.
And, maybe they have a kid. Their kid's hair color might be kind of like, it might just be brown. Like,
Yeah.
you never know what people are going to look like, what animals are going to look like. And, like, it just kind of changes over time. And so this is me dumbing down
No,
Callie's
no.
information. Like, like a dog and another dog aren't going to just, like, have a cat. Like,
Yeah.
it's still going to be a dog. It's just, like, two different breeds making a new breed.
Yeah. And that's why I would say natural selection can't support evolution, because it only works within a kind and not changing one kind of animal into another kind. And then overall, mutations are what evolutionists use as the means of how one animal evolves into another animal. I think it's funny because mutations generally are harmful. There are some arguments where, oh, this mutation isn't necessarily harmful. I think it's, what is it called? Sickle cell anemia, where your blood will clot, like you'll get blood clots a lot easier, and your blood cells are not the correct shape, but you're immune to malaria. So it's helpful in one way, but harmful in another way, and I don't think that's a good argument personally. Another reason is mutations degenerate your genes, like you lose genetic information. For evolution to happen, you have to have a gaining of genetic information. There can't be a loss. And so mutations just do not work. So another interesting fact I would say is something called Haldane's dilemma. And essentially, there's 40 million separate mutations that have to happen in between the evolution of an ape to a human. But that dilemma says that there was not enough time for that to happen. So I think that's interesting. Another thing is called irreducible complexity. I think someone joked that if they could find an organism that had several working parts but could not be simplified, that they would believe in creation and not evolution. And fun fact is, they did. There's actually several different things. Essentially, irreducible complexity is that there are organisms with multiple different parts, but if one part was taken away, then that organism would not be able to survive anymore, would not be able to live. And evolution works with the adding on of parts. And so if that organism couldn't live with less parts to begin with, that means it couldn't have evolved. And so I think that's another interesting concept.
Yeah, that's really cool. Like, I never really knew about that, but that's like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Actually, I'm just
Honestly, I don't know
like
anymore either.
I feel like I don't know. I feel like part of me, I'm just like taking this in, and it's like learning all of it. Like some of the things you're saying, like I'm asking these questions with the hopes of you explaining it for like other people. It's like I already believe it, so I'm not asking you to prove it for my sake. But you're saying lots of things that I'm like, man, I didn't know about that, and I'm just like over here just in awe. But yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like it.
I do also kind of want to ask, if somebody came up to you and was like, I'm an atheist, and they were also like, they were saying like they believed in evolution, and then you got to talking and they found out you believed in like, you were a Christian and you believed in creation, and you were talking and they were just kind of like, hey, like, why do you believe that? Like, what makes you think that creation is right over evolution? How would you explain it to someone who like believes completely opposite and doesn't like have any belief in creation?
I would say that's a good question, but unless, which it comes to a point of it's very specific for each person, but a lot of the times if a person is so rooted in their belief, arguing about something isn't going to help that. And I would say instead of arguing about like the whole creation versus evolution thing, I would just point them directly to the gospel instead of nitpicking over creation and evolution, because essentially it does affect the gospel account, but what you believe about creation isn't going to affect your salvation like directly. It's more, are you saved by grace through faith? Do you believe in Jesus? Have you repented and confessed of your sins? I would say specifically if you did want to bring up the creation evolution debate, because they're an evolutionist, most likely an atheist, they're not going to take the Bible as true, so keep that in mind. I would point out scientific maybe evidences, concerns, fallacies in research, but I would also try and put some of the Bible in there too, because it's true even if they don't believe it's true at that point. And it would be very sad for an atheist or an evolutionist to be open to learning more about our side and then we don't share anything about the Bible to them.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's important to understand creation and like we want people to, understand God's truth about that. But like in the end, what's more important? Winning them over to believing that creation is true or winning them over to believing that Jesus died and rose again for them?
Yeah.
So, yeah. I think that's really good. Just like, pointing them, towards the gospel first and foremost, but also like, if they're really asking, still being open to sharing about that, but not like attacking them.
Yeah. They will never learn anything if you attack them. It needs to be a conversation that they need to be open to for them to get anything out of it.
So true. Now, one thing I will say is that like you just are very established in like what you believe. You just like are very confident in what you believe and the facts that you have. How would you like encourage someone who maybe struggles more with doubt and even though like they know the facts, like they know that creation had to have existed because God says it did, but like they just struggle with more doubt and they just struggle with like being like really grounded in what they believe. Like how would you encourage someone?
Honestly, like the simple answers of getting into your Bible more, praying that God would give you the enlightenment and confidence in what His Word says is true. I would also say if you're more unsure of which side that you believe, do research, but research both sides, which I find I've always like believed creation is true, but researching the other side of what other people believe, I find one interesting and two very helpful to understand the person or understand what other people believe. Because if you don't understand what they're thinking, then it's very hard to talk to them about what you believe. And they will respect you a lot more if you understand what they believe. And it also will help solidify your belief. Like, this is what people say, and I know that, but I also know that Christianity is true, and this is why. It gives you a better argument. In the end, just base what you believe off of the Bible, because the Bible is our ultimate source of truth. There can be these experiments and these other people with all their opinions, but what the Bible says is true, and God gave us all that we needed to believe Him. We don't need anything more. So if we never made a solid opinion on evolution or creation, we would still be able to have a relationship with God. So I don't know if I agree with that.
You did really good. Sorry, I just like started like almost laughing because there's a window right there, and I just saw Lydia
That's true.
walk by the window smiling while holding a bunny.
Oh no!
I almost lost it, but yeah.
Oh boy,
that was really random, but no, that was entertaining there. A little distracting, but entertaining.
I hope it's okay.
But yeah. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about that, or?
No, I think that's it.
But anyways, thank you so much for sharing on the podcast today. Like you covered definitely a topic that I could not have covered. At least not accurately or like really in depth.
Yeah, it's fun. I like yapping about science. So
Yeah, no, that works. Yeah, like today was interesting. Like I really didn't yap that much. Like normally I feel like I I'm either doing it by myself just talking or I'm doing it with somebody else and we're both kind of going back and forth and talking, but this time it was a lot of me asking questions and then Callie doing the yapping. So that was kind of fun. Different vibe today, a little change up. But yeah, I hope that's been able to enlighten you a little bit and encourage you. So yeah, especially if you're, starting up school or college or whatever, and it's a good reminder for your head in there, or like even just like if you're working with people who have completely different beliefs than you, it's a great reminder to have these things if those kind of conversations ever come up, and just to really just ground yourself in your faith, because as Callie was saying, like when you know the things about what you believe and like you also know the things other people believe, like knowing those things and being able to compare them like really just roots you in what you believe, and I think that that's just really important too.
yeah,
But yeah, thanks again for coming and sharing.
of course.
Yeah, and thank you guys for listening. Be sure to follow or subscribe to whatever way you're watching or listening, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. And then you can also follow me on Instagram at the Living Life for Real podcast. You guys just have an amazing day, and I'll see you in a few weeks.